My girlfriend, Jessica Hayes, and I had been together for 7 years. We were practically engaged, but she wouldn't let me touch her. She said I only wanted her for sex and didn't respect her. She even stormed out over it. The irony is, on the very night I was tearing the city apart looking for her, she was at some downtown bar with her best friend, trashing me as the villain, getting wasted, and ending up in bed with a dark, brooding, alpha male CEO. She didn't mention the word respect once during that encounter. The next morning, she just quietly gathered her things and left, showing a meekness I'd never seen. Later, the two of them got together in a whirlwind romance, and my story ended with me, the toxic ex, freezing to death under a bridge. It was only after I died that I found out the truth. I was just a supporting character in a cliché billionaire romance novel, a villain whose tragic end was supposed to make the main character's love story shine. Seriously, what exactly did I do that was so toxic? Fine, if I can't shake the label, I might as well live up to it. But now that I'm actually playing the villain, Jessica, why are you the one crying? A rude awakening, Nathan. Is that all you ever think about? The one thing between your legs. My girlfriend, Jessica Hayes, was screaming, her voice cracking with sobs, as if I'd committed some unforgivable crime. Am I just a tool to you? Something you use to blow off steam? Where's the respect in that, Nathan? Where? Jess, The world was spinning, a dizzying sense of déjà vu washing over me. It felt like I'd been hit by a sledgehammer as a flood of memories poured in my brain. The words I wanted to say to stop her were caught in my throat, lost in the vertigo. Enough, she shrieked. I don't want to hear any more of your disgusting excuses. Lauren was right all along. You don't love me. You just love my body. You're disgusting. Weeping, she turned and left, slamming the door so hard the frame shook, a final punctuation mark on her rage. She never noticed that the man who should have been reaching out to her was clutching his head, fighting a skull-splitting headache. Tears fell silently from my eyes, a farewell to 7 years of love and a tribute to my cruel fate. The awakening of my past life memories and the new information in my head labeled a narrative stopped me from trying to save us. After all, how could a supporting character ever stop the female lead from running toward her destiny? I was the bad guy, a real piece of work. I met Jessica, a sweet, somewhat clueless girl, in college, and from that moment on, my life plans were built around her. After graduation, I busted my ass at a small tech firm, working my way up to team lead and taking on freelance projects on the side. Every extra hour, every line of code, was to save up enough for a down payment so I could finally marry her. I never cheated. I never laid a hand on her. I didn't have any secret addictions. But I knew I was the villain, because as our love deepened, I couldn't help but suggest taking our relationship to the next level. Not because I saw her as an object, as she claimed, but because we were talking about marriage. We'd even picked out a neighborhood for our future home. For two adults in love, it seemed like the natural next step. This time, however, I had apparently crossed a line. She left and went out with her best friend, Lauren Vance. They ended up at a trendy bar I'd never been to, a place I'd never think to look for her, where they drank cocktails and she vented about how her Neanderthal boyfriend didn't respect her. Then, completely drunk, Jessica stumbled into a devastatingly handsome man. His aura was intense, brooding, and screamed old money. As a way of getting back at me, she went with him to a hotel. After a wild night, she slipped out in a panic. The twist? When she got to her job at Blackwood Enterprises the next day, she discovered that the man from her one-night stand was none other than the new CEO, flown in from the New York head office, the one and only Damian Blackwood. She recognized him, and he recognized her. Though nothing was said in that first meeting, the spark of their fated romance made Jessica's heart skip a beat. After that, it was a classic story. He pursued, she resisted. In the end, she couldn't escape. She was his sweet, innocent prize. He was her powerful protector. Their love blossomed through a series of misunderstandings and a dramatic push and pull. Eventually, due to his family's disapproval, Jessica discovered she was pregnant and fled to London. Damian, finally realizing the depth of his feelings, called off his arranged engagement to the Rossi family heiress and chased after her. And so, the star-crossed lovers were finally united. Jessica became the pampered Mrs. Blackwood. She gave him 2 children. The first, a daughter, was just like her, kind-hearted, sweet, and fiercely passionate. The second, a son, was a genius just like his father, brilliant and calculating. Damien was even jealous of the attention his hacker prodigy son got from Jessica. But what could he do? He adored his wife, so he had to put up with it. And me? What happened to me in this story? Oh, right. I was the toxic ex who hurt Jessica. Early in their story, Damien's revenge was swift and brutal, being publicly humiliated by Jessica and Damien time and time again, just to prove what a blind fool I'd been, was the least of it. My personal projects failed, I was blacklisted from the tech industry, and even the company I worked for was dragged down with me. I was jumped by thugs in an alley. My bank loans were mysteriously called in. Hunted by a relentless, unseen force, I was left with nothing. My story ended with me freezing to death under a bridge. That was my punishment for being the villain. Heh, I'm the villain, I muttered, the laughter bubbling up from my chest. Ha ha ha. The toxic ex-boyfriend whose only purpose is to die to make the billionaire and his damsel feel better about themselves. Ha ha. My head was pounding, but my laughter was manic. Because I had died and come back, I could now see the world for what it was, a billionaire romance novel. And my purpose? I was the punching bag, the stepping stone for Jessica and Damien's love story, destined for a tragic exit to atone for my sins. Fine, just fine, I snarled. Then I'll give you what you want. Jessica Hayes, Damien Blackwood, let me show you what a real villain looks like. In the moonlight, my smile was terrifying. A change of plans. Nate, this project of yours is on the home stretch. To leave now. Are you in some kind of trouble? My boss, Chris, was a good guy. He always had a smile on his face, and while the work was demanding, the atmosphere in his office was relaxed. He was right. Our project was nearing client delivery, and as the team lead, my resignation was completely out of line. But if I stayed, the trouble would be far, far worse. Once Damien Blackwood, that lawless tyrant, made things official with Jessica, he would turn the full force of his revenge on me, her toxic ex. Chris's small company would be caught in the crossfire. Forget the project. The entire business would be destroyed. In my past life, Chris lost everything. He ended his life by jumping from the roof of his office building. As he stood there in the wind, I'm sure he cursed my name for bringing such disaster upon him. Chris must have sensed I was holding something back. After trying and failing to get me to stay, he accepted my resignation. Being a small startup, the offboarding process was quick. I was officially severed from the company by lunchtime. Time was of the essence. In my last life, I lost because I was naive, ambushed by a calculating enemy. I lost because I gambled on Jessica having a conscience, and on that monster, Damien Blackwood, having a shred of humanity. This time, I had to move fast, gather all my resources, and avoid any early confrontation. It was the only way to escape my fate and get my revenge. That afternoon, while I was packing my personal belongings in my apartment, I got a message from a friend I'd hired for a job. Jessica hadn't blocked me. Before her drunken night out, she'd posted an Instagram story hinting that her toxic boyfriend broke her heart and only good friends and cocktails could heal it, and she hadn't hidden her location. Her 9-photo carousel gave away the bar's name. A billionaire like Damien Blackwood slumming it at a bar like that was a random impulse. According to the narrative, they spent the night at a high-end hotel nearby. So my first step was clear. I had a few well-connected friends start making inquiries at all the luxury hotels in that area. It took some string pulling, a bit of cash, and a lot of favors, but they finally got it. A grainy clip of security footage showing Jessica and Damien stumbling into a hotel together, and another of Jessica rushing out alone in the morning. The video was blurry, but you could make out their general shapes. The hotel refused to provide anything clearer, but it was enough. This should buy me some time, I whispered to myself. I took screenshots of the footage, added a few key details, logged into an anonymous overseas email account, and sent the messages to 2 specific targets. A wave of relief washed over me. The first recipient was Jessica's best friend, Lauren Vance. Her relationship with Jessica had always been complicated. They grew up together, the classic, I'd hate for you to suffer, but I'd hate it even more if you got a Range Rover kind of friendship. Every time they met, Lauren would subtly drop poison in Jessica's ear about me being a villain or a social climber. I knew Lauren, who grew up comfortably in Seattle, held a strange animosity toward me, an outsider who had worked for everything he had. I always thought she was bad news and tried to warn Jessica about her. The narrative showed me I was right. Jessica actually knew Lauren was jealous, which is why she tried to keep her relationship with Damien a secret first. Later, when a tabloid caught Damien with a model, his fans tracked Jessica down and plastered her picture all over the internet. That's when Lauren found out her bestie had traded her toxic ex for a billionaire. On the surface, she remained a supportive friend, but behind the scenes, she tried everything to break them up, even attempting to seduce Damien herself. Because she was a frenemy who created drama, this supporting villain lasted a lot longer in the narrative than I did. Now, I was leaking the story of Jessica and Damien's one-night stand to her early, complete with Damien's basic information. I couldn't imagine the notoriously messy Lauren letting them find happiness so easily. The second recipient was Damien Blackwood's fiancée, Isabella Rossi. She was the heiress to the Rossi family fortune in Seattle. My past life's memory didn't include her. I was too insignificant, and my demise too swift for me to have ever crossed paths with someone of her stature. But the narrative had plenty about her. Though she and Damien had known each other since childhood, she wasn't madly in love with him. Their relationship was more of a business arrangement between their families. When she found out about Damien and Jessica, she had tried to back out of the engagement gracefully. Her attempt, however, triggered a conflict between the Rossi and Blackwood families, which ultimately put Jessica in the crossfire and provoked Damien's legendary wrath. The Rossi family's fortunes took a devastating hit. It was a bleak end. Because Isabella Rossi was smart, the information I sent her was more detailed. Along with the hotel screenshots, I included details on two major business opportunities the narrative mentioned the Blackwood family would stumble upon thanks to Jessica's good luck charm presence. I also included a warning about a specific market event set to happen in the next few days. Finally, I attached a heavily redacted excerpt of the narrative, edited to remove any trace of me, that detailed events up to the point of the Rossi family's downfall. I used an anonymous overseas email, but I wasn't naive enough to think I could hide forever. All I needed was to provide enough evidence to prove the most terrifying parts of my prediction were real. A woman as intelligent as Isabella Rossi would know exactly what to do. The messages were sent. My plan to turn my enemies against each other was in motion. If things went as expected, I had built my first line of defense. As long as I played my cards right, my survival for the near future was likely secured. But that wasn't enough. You want to play games? I thought, a cold smile on my face. Fine, I'll play to win. That was my promise, and I intended to keep it. 3 days later, Portland, Oregon, inside a private business lounge. Mr. Mitchell, from my perspective, I am very impressed with your proposal. I just have one last question. Across from me, Alex Chun, the young heir to Chun Innovations, handled our entire negotiation with an effortless grace that radiated confidence. In contrast, despite my meticulous preparation, I felt like he had led me by the nose more than once. Just as I thought we had finally sealed a tentative agreement, his sudden shift in tone put me back on edge. My heart pounded in my chest. Go ahead, Mr. Chun. Alex smiled, but his eyes turned sharp. I'll have my people verify the market intelligence you've provided. I'm not questioning the reliability of your sources. Let's be frank. It seems you want to see the Blackwood family, and Damien Blackwood in particular, utterly destroyed. This partnership feels a lot like you're hiring a hitman. As the weapon in this scenario, I'd like to understand your motive. Hearing his direct question, the anxiety in my chest eased. I had managed projects before. With my old boss, Chris, I'd sat in on enough negotiations to know that this kind of blunt honesty was often the final confirmation before a deal was struck. In a partnership with Chun Innovations, I was in the weaker position. I had to be transparent to show my sincerity. So, though it still stung, I chose to reveal my own wounds. My fiancée, Jessica Hayes, works at Blackwood Enterprises in Seattle. 4 days ago, she met Damien Blackwood at a bar inn. They slept together. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots. We've been together for 7 years. We were planning our wedding. This is something I cannot forgive. Alex Chin wasn't in my memories, but in my research of Blackwood Enterprises' main business lines, I cross-referenced the villains mentioned in the narrative and carefully selected him. He was a late-stage antagonist who would have a fierce clash with Damien and ultimately be crushed. Of course, I also did my due diligence on Alex's character, securing him as a key partner, and trading intelligence on the Blackwood family for his financial backing and a coordinated strike in a few months' time was my long-term strategy for him. Right now, all I needed to do was leak the insider information that the real estate-focused Blackwood family was planning to acquire a promising Seattle-based AI startup, Aegis Dynamics, to pivot into the tech sector. This intel was gold for Alex, whose primary interests were already in AI. In return, I wanted access to his network and some seed funding. This wasn't about my career. It was about revenge. I see. Well, my apologies, Mr. Mitchell, for bringing up a painful subject, Alex said, looking a bit taken aback by my reason. His smile was slightly awkward, but I could feel his trust in me growing. Perhaps in this world, so heavily influenced by romance tropes, even ruthless CEOs had a soft spot for matters of the heart. You understand, once we make this move, it means a direct confrontation with the Blackwoods. So, I will need to verify everything you've told me, including your personal situation. I hope you understand. I smiled and told him it was no problem. Let him investigate. I had nothing to hide. The rest of the meeting was cordial. I left with Alex's promise of support. The capital I had to work with had just grown substantially. It seemed my 3 days of obsessive planning and research had paid off. I turned down Alex's offer of a ride back to my hotel and walked through the streets of Portland. It wasn't as sprawling as Seattle, but the glittering city lights still stung my heart. Once, my only dream was to build a cozy home with Jessica. To know that among all the lights in the city, one of them was shining for us. That was all I wanted. For that goal, I had worked diligently and lived responsibly. I couldn't comprehend how I had become the villain. Just like I couldn't understand how my dream had shattered, or if I would ever be able to dream it again. 7 years, and a death. It was impossible not to feel the pain. But the fire in my heart, the one named revenge, had grown hotter with each passing day since my rebirth. If a stable, happy life was no longer in the cards for me, then I would gladly burn your perfect little world to the ground, Jessica. And I'd take your precious CEO with you. Would I feel empty after it was all over? Fearful. I'd worry about that later. BZZZT. BZZZT. My phone vibrated. A text from Jessica. Nathan, I am so done with your disrespect. You haven't even tried to apologize. I don't think there's any point in continuing this. Let's just end it. Breaking up is for the best. I've already packed my important things. Don't contact me again. A cold smirk touched my lips. To avoid tipping her off, I had only packed my most essential items before leaving our Seattle apartment. This text told me everything. Not only did she have no idea I was already making moves against her and Damien, but she didn't even know I had left town before she did. I hadn't been exposed. That was good. But at the same time, a deeper sense of sorrow washed over me. According to the narrative, by now she had already slept with Damien, had her meet cute at the office, and was well into the push-and-pull phase of their whirlwind romance. Right? After 7 years together, me wanting to take the next step was disrespectful. But she could throw away her first time on a stranger out of spite and feel nothing but excitement when her billionaire boss aggressively pursued her. The hypocrisy was staggering. I felt sick thinking about the 7 years and the death I had wasted. BZZZT. BZZZT. My phone vibrated again. A text from Jessica's best friend, Lauren. Nate, Jess moved in with me. She seems really mad at you. Seriously, what's your problem? Why are you in such a hurry? You have to be patient with girls. She's a slow burn. You can't rush her. By the way, I saw her getting pretty close with that new CEO at her company, Damien Blackwood. You better watch out, or a great girl like Jess is going to slip through your fingers. Her tone was friendlier than it had ever been. But this message was far more interesting than Jessica's. First, Lauren must have found out more about Damien. In my initial email, I had deliberately left out his name, a small piece of bait. Seeing his name here meant she had taken the bait and was now in the game. Second, she had no idea I was the one who sent her the anonymous tip. Otherwise, she wouldn't be telling me where Jessica was staying and what her relationship status was. And third, she was already trying to sabotage Jessica and Damien. Telling me about Damien was a clear attempt to get me to keep a tighter leash on Jessica. I had just used her as a weapon against them, and now she was trying to use me for the same purpose. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I smiled and texted her back, frowny face, Lauren. I'm out of town on a business trip for a few days. Can you keep an eye on Jess for me? You know I can't live without her. I'll treat you to a nice dinner when I get back. Thanks a million. Lauren replied with an okay emoji. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. I bet Lauren never dreamed that the cicada she was trying to trap was another hunter in disguise. But this was just the beginning. I would move step by step, piece by piece, to prepare a final farewell for the ones who had wronged me, long before the narrative reached its climax. The coming storm. The narrative told me that Jessica's running away pregnant plot point happened 6 months after her first night with Damien. That meant, if all went according to the original script, I had 6 months to prepare. Of course, if I made any drastic moves, I could accelerate the timeline. I had to be careful, coordinate my progress, and step on my preparations. I took a quick trip back to Seattle to officially move out of my old apartment. Bankrolled by Alex Chun, I settled in Portland, managing everything remotely. It was worth noting that after verifying my intel, Alex moved decisively, sabotaging Blackwood Enterprises' acquisition of Aegis Dynamics and snapping up the AI firm for himself. This setback didn't stop the Blackwood family strategic shift, of course, but it forced them to spend far more money to acquire a second-rate AI company with inferior tech and talent, making their pivot into the sector a clumsy and expensive stumble. The timely and accurate information dramatically increased Alex's trust in me. The Chun and Blackwood families already had bad blood, and seeing me so committed to my revenge plot, he was more than happy to offer his support. With the Chin's help, I steadily expanded my coalition against the Blackwoods, analyzing the narrative and adapting to real-world conditions. The Yu and Zhou families in Portland, and even the influential and family back in Seattle, all reached tentative agreements through Alex's mediation. A great net was slowly being cast. Meanwhile, the main characters were completely oblivious, lost in their own little world of romantic drama. I never stopped gathering intelligence from Seattle. In addition to public sources and my friends, my loose alliance with the Chins and others gave me access to more reliable, direct information. Jessica and Damien, after their initial drama, were now a semi-public couple. As everyone knows, the love between a billionaire and a simple girl requires the sacrifice of a villain. The best villain for the job was, naturally me, the toxic ex. But the villain had vanished. Before disappearing, he had also left 2 very inconvenient speed bumps for the story's main characters. As a result, Jessica and Damien's love story began to veer dramatically off course from the original plot. First, there was Lauren. When she realized I wasn't coming back and saw Jessica getting closer and closer to the billionaire Damien, she panicked. After prying the details of their relationship out of a naive Jessica, she set a trap. During a girls' night out, she drugged Damien and slept with him. The problem was, she was a villain in the narrative. Damien fell for the genuine and unpretentious Jessica. He would never fall for the conniving Lauren. In a spectacularly foolish move, Lauren confessed everything to Jessica, expecting it to break them up. Jessica was furious and immediately tried to end things with Damien. Damien, in turn, was blindsided. In the original script, their first major crisis was supposed to be caused by a misunderstanding involving me. Now, the catalyst was Lauren. A billionaire CEO has eyes only for his one true love. He would never notice a supporting character like Lauren, no matter how beautiful. Seeing her upset his girlfriend, he gave a cold, cruel smile, had his men grab her, and had her trafficked to a cartel in Mexico. When an intelligence network I'd built with Alex's help brought me this news, a cold sweat ran down my spine. So, in my past life, Damien had actually gone easy on me. Freezing to death under a bridge was a mercy compared to being sold off and butchered in a foreign country. Do we have proof? I asked Alex, who looked just as shocked as I felt. Absolutely. This Damien Blackwood. Wow, it's a good thing. A good thing? I caught the phrase, but seeing Alex had no intention of elaborating, I let it go. In a partnership, some things were better left unsaid. Once this was all over and I had my own company, I could call the shots. For now, I had to respect my allies' secrets. Furthermore, in a billionaire romance, the beautiful heroine is always surrounded by pathetic losers trying to hit on her, just waiting for the hero to swoop in and put them in their place to prove his dominance. With my character's early exit and the lovers stuck in Seattle, my role had to be filled by someone else. This time, the unlucky substitute was Jessica's direct manager, Mark Johnson. Mark was Jessica's team lead and had often criticized her for her absent-mindedness, her chronic lateness, and her tendency to daydream at work. Jessica had always assumed this greasy middle-aged man was hitting on her. So, in this new version of the script, Mark Johnson was branded the new villain. He suffered the full force of Blackwood's wrath. Fired, blacklisted from the industry, his legs broken by thugs, and left to die under a bridge in the winter. With that one smooth combo, Jessica and Damien's love was deepened once more. And the pile of evidence Alex and I were collecting grew a little higher. "This guy is unbelievable," Alex said, raising an imaginary glass in Seattle's direction. Damien's methods were so reckless, so full of holes, that he was practically daring someone to take him down. When we finally made our move, he would probably drag the entire Blackwood family down with him. "And that's the man, the kind Principal Jessica Hayes fell for," I said with a self-deprecating laugh, downing my glass of red wine in one gulp. I didn't usually drink, but the vintage Alex had sent over was excellent. "Hey, Nate," Alex said, leaning forward. "Take it from me. Don't get stuck in the past. The future is much brighter." Over the past few months, Alex hadn't treated me like some vengeful monster. We'd become genuine friends. He was a good guy, and having a friend helped with the loneliness. I thanked him for his concern. My resolve for revenge hadn't wavered, but a deep sadness still lingered. Why did my life have to be destroyed time and again by garbage people like Jessica and Damien? On what grounds? Just because I was cast as the villain? Sensing my dark mood, Alex suddenly lowered his voice and said mysteriously, "Nate, my man, I know a fantastic woman I'd like you to meet. You free anytime soon?" Free. Of course I was free. The Chun family was footing the bill for my living expenses and operations. My days were spent either plotting revenge, networking and refining my plans, or at the gym, learning to fight in case Damien got desperate. My life was full, but I could certainly make time to meet someone. After all, Jessica and I hadn't even officially broken up. But since the narrative had labeled me a villain, why not act the part? If it felt right, great. If not, I'd be honest about it. I readily agreed. I never expected that when I met the woman Alex had arranged for me to see, her identity would leave me speechless. The question that had been haunting me for months was answered in an instant. The woman was Damien Blackwood's fiancée, the #1 female antagonist from the narrative, Isabella Rossi. 5. The eve of battle. Mr. Mitchell, first and foremost, I want to thank you for the information you provided. It has been a tremendous help to my family, and to me personally. As Isabella Rossi extended a delicate hand, I met it with my own without a moment's hesitation. Her hand was soft and slender, but what truly impressed me was the poise and intelligence of the Rossi heiress. She got straight to the point, acknowledging who I was. Beating around the bush would have been an insult. I nodded. "You're welcome, and thank you for choosing to trust me." In the months since, the Rossi family had successfully sidestepped several major financial traps I had warned them about. They had also cunningly intercepted a few lucrative opportunities that were originally destined for the Blackwood family. As the Blackwoods weakened, the Rossis were having a banner year. From the irrepressible smile playing on Isabella's lips, I could tell she was in high spirits. "That information, do you have any more, Mr. Mitchell? I assure you, you will be compensated handsomely." Isabella revealed a flicker of her ambition. This was good. A person with desires is a person you can negotiate with. "I have some things I can forward to your email later," I said, pausing for effect before continuing. "As for compensation, that's not my priority right now. What I hope for is a formal alliance with the Rossi family against the Blackwoods. Just like Alex said, you have an unusual fixation on the Blackwood family," she remarked with a light laugh, her hand covering her mouth. She didn't mention Jessica, a tactful move that both spared my pride and solidified the basis of our trust. Then she asked, "So, Mr. Mitchell, what are your plans for the next phase? Or rather, how exactly do you intend to deliver the killing blow to the Blackwoods?" Until now, I'd been hesitant about the Rossi family's commitment. They had used my intelligence to their advantage, but hadn't made a public break with Damien. It felt a bit like they were happy to take my help while keeping their options open. But now, seeing her here, her tone and timing made it clear. She wanted blood too. In fact, much of the support Alex had given me was likely at her direction. With that understanding, I decided to be completely open. I'm planning a multi-pronged attack. In business, you need 5 things: human resources, capital, supply chain, public policy, and technology. Over the past few months, with the help of the Chins and our other partners, I've developed strategies to target each of these pillars. Some pieces are already in place. Others are still in motion. When the time is right, the funeral march for the Blackwood family will begin. Of course, with the Rossi family's help, it will be much more effective. The right time? What are you waiting for? Isabella asked, her curiosity piqued. I looked at her seriously. I'm waiting for Jessica to run off pregnant. My bluntness caught her off guard, and she burst out laughing. The sight of her, radiant and amused, was momentarily dazzling. Jessica gets pregnant on the first try. It's a classic billionaire romance trope, isn't it? My plan was to make a move on Damien's father, the head of the Blackwood family. According to the narrative, the patriarch had a mistress and an illegitimate son. Jessica's pregnancy would create an explosive variable in the Blackwood-Rossi engagement. If his mistress found out about the mess Damien had made, she would have all the leverage she needed to challenge the current Mrs. Blackwood. Chaos would erupt within the Blackwood family. Mrs. Blackwood would redirect her fury onto Jessica, and the girl would have no choice but to run. The plan was simple and had a high chance of success. It doesn't have to be that complicated, Isabella said, her beautiful eyes sparkling with appreciation and excitement. When you're ready, I'll just go and officially break off the engagement. She smiled. Whatever help you need, just tell Alex. He's my cousin, you know. That was one detail I had not been aware of. Seeing my surprise, Isabella extended her hand to me again, her voice full of playful teasing. Brave, smart, and a complete gentleman. Spends all his time either plotting corporate takeovers or at the gym. I really don't know why Jessica Hayes ever thought you were the villain. Haha. Well, plotting to ruin your ex-girlfriend and her new family is pretty villainous, I said, my tone matter-of-fact but unapologetic. Our hands met again. Outside the window, I could almost feel the oppressive weight of the coming storm. 6. The hunt. With Isabella on board, the preparations accelerated. 3 months later, the Rossi family formally requested to terminate the engagement. The Blackwoods were stunned. Their families were social and economic equals. And while Isabella had never been particularly passionate about Damien, she had never shown any outright dislike either. But there was no arguing with the evidence Isabella threw down on the table in front of Damien's parents. A collection of photos showing Damien and Jessica together all over the city, acting like a couple. And I, at Isabella's invitation, was there as a silent observer from the Rossi side to witness the glorious fallout. Old friend, surely it's not this serious, Mrs. Blackwood said, forcing a sycophantic smile at Isabella's father, Chairman Rossi. Damien is just young and foolish. When he gets back, I'll give him a good talking to, make him break it off with that woman from the streets. Isabella's mother stood stone-faced while her father exploded. Foolish? Don't give me that crap. We were already having second thoughts about this marriage. If it wasn't for the fact that my Isabella grew up with that little punk, we would have called this off years ago. He pulls this kind of stunt before they're even married. He's slapping my family in the face. Please calm down. I will not calm down. Anyone who makes my daughter unhappy, I will make them unhappy for the rest of their life. Chairman Rossi roared, pulling out the engagement agreement and tearing it to shreds. Since no legal marriage had taken place, the matter was settled. He shot a venomous glare at the elder Mr. Blackwood, then turned and stormed out, with me, Isabella, and the rest of the Rossi contingent in his wake. We couldn't care less that the old Blackwood patriarch had collapsed behind us, or that Mrs. Blackwood was wailing in despair. The bomb had been detonated. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Jessica was summoned to the Blackwood mansion and subjected to a tirade of humiliation from Mrs. Blackwood. Having been treated like a princess by me, and then pampered by Damien, despite his flaws, Jessica had never experienced such abuse. The newly pregnant and hormonal young woman snapped and slapped Damien's mother across the face. Enraged, Mrs. Blackwood retaliated with 3 slaps of her own. Furious and hurt, Jessica booked a flight that night and was on a plane to London the next day. For some reason, I felt that if she'd waited a couple of weeks, endured a bit more suffering, it would have been far more devastating for Damien when he finally came to her rescue. But no matter. When Damien discovered his fiancée-to-be had fled the country, he panicked and bought the next ticket to London. She fled, he chased. Not even an ocean could stop their fated love story. And then, "Let's begin," Isabella said, sharing the news of the chaos at the Blackwood mansion. Her eyes danced with excitement as she looked at me. "Right, time to send the Blackwoods on their way." With a single command, the allied families, Rossi, Chun-Jo, and sprang into action like a well-oiled war machine. A relentless barrage of attacks rained down on the Blackwood family, hitting them so hard and fast they had no time to defend, let alone fight back. First, a rescue team brought back a barely recognizable Lauren from Mexico. The story was a media sensation, sparking a nationwide debate. The narrative twisted and turned. First, it was reported she was sold by her boyfriend. Then, a correction revealed she was betrayed by her best friend's new billionaire lover. Suddenly, Damien Blackwood and Jessica Hayes were at the center of a media firestorm. The Blackwood family frantically tried to bury the story, but it was too explosive, touching on too many hot-button issues. The hashtag trended for days. Next, the story of Damien's brutal revenge on his own employee, Mark Johnson, all for the sake of defending Jessica's honor, was leaked to the press. And so, the trap was sprung. Externally, they were facing a legal and PR nightmare. Internally, the news that the heir apparent, Damien Blackwood, had essentially murdered an employee sent waves of fear and distrust through the company. But that was just the beginning. The allied families launched their coordinated assault on the now unstable company. They poached key technical staff. They hijacked their supply chains. They spread news of the Blackwoods' legal troubles to drive up their borrowing costs. They fueled the public outrage, demanding a full investigation into Damien Blackwood. Honestly, the plan wouldn't have worked so smoothly if the Blackwood family hadn't been rotting from the inside, thanks to their tyrant heir. Normally, poaching top talent is difficult. But with the horrific story of Mark Johnson going viral, it was shockingly easy. When the old Mr. Blackwood demanded to know why his chief technology officer was betraying the family, the man's answer was firm. "Your family destroys its own employees over a girl. What guarantee do I have that I won't be the next Mark Johnson?" The company ground to a halt. The patriarch suffered a massive heart attack and was hospitalized. In a desperate act of self-preservation, the board of directors stripped him of his power and publicly fired the disgraced Damien Blackwood. But that did nothing to stop the feeding frenzy. Showing weakness only invites the wolves to attack more fiercely. The once mighty Blackwood empire began to crumble. When I saw the news headline announcing Blackwood Enterprises' bankruptcy and the arrest warrant issued for Damien Blackwood, a massive weight lifted from my chest. I had completely rewritten the narrative. My revenge was more or less complete. Did I feel empty? No. Why would I? I had escaped death. A whole new world was waiting for me. My best years were just beginning. I had no time to feel empty. Did I feel fear? No. Why should I? A clueless girl who secretly wanted me gone and a ruthless monster were now fugitives. How was that my problem? The ones who should be afraid were the ones who had done wrong. My conscience was clear. My heart was light. As for the villain label, I didn't care anymore. Perhaps if Jessica ever came back, she would be furious, even hysterical, to find me in a relationship with her ex-boyfriend's former fiancée, Isabella Rossi. But it didn't matter. Isabella appreciated my methodical determination. I admired her intelligence and decisiveness. That was enough. I would gladly accept the title of villain. At least when Isabella and I first made love, she didn't spend the whole time making excuses or accusing me of disrespecting her. We were engaged soon after. Holding Isabella's hand, the one that now wore my ring, I felt a warmth spread through me. It was a stark contrast to the bone-chilling cold of the underpass in my past life. Among all the city's lights, one was finally shining for me. After my revenge was complete, I moved my parents to Seattle. They both adored their future daughter-in-law, Isabella. I also went back to my old company, this time as an investor and partner to my old boss, Chris. My former colleagues were stunned to see me return in such a different capacity, and they all congratulated me on my success. A few of my closest friends pulled me aside. Dude, what on earth did you do to land the Rossi heiress? I became the villain, I answered with absolute conviction. 2 years passed in a blur. Isabella and I got married and had our first child. Our home was a happy one, built on communication and mutual respect. Our parents had even come to an agreement. Our firstborn would take my last name, Mitchell, and the next would take hers, Rossi. Seeing my in-laws beaming with pride and watching Isabella blush as she held our baby filled me with a quiet joy. Just when I thought the narrative had faded from my life for good, a person I never expected to see again appeared near our house, acting suspiciously. When a neighborhood security patrol confronted her, she let out a blood-curdling scream. "Nathan, I need to see Nathan Mitchell." "What's going on?" Isabella asked, startled. I had instinctively moved to shield her. I recognized the raw, desperate voice. I quickly told Isabella to take the baby back inside and promised I would explain everything later. "Good afternoon, Mr. Mitchell," the head of security said. This woman was trying to sneak into the community. We apprehended her immediately. We sincerely apologize for any disturbance. Security in our gated community was top-notch, with cameras and facial recognition at every entrance. Trying to sneak in was a fool's errand. I felt a strange pity for the Jessica who had returned from London, completely out of touch with the world. "Hey, she has a knife," another guard shouted. "She was definitely up to no good. Call the police now." The guards confiscated a gleaming fruit knife from the waist of the disheveled, beggar-like Jessica. Losing her weapon, she let out another heart-wrenching wail. "Nathan, why did you do this to me, you monster?" "Just because I felt you didn't respect me. I went looking for my own happiness. Why did you have to destroy it? You took everything from me. My sweet daughter, my genius son, my powerful husband. Give them back to me. Give them back." Had she been reborn too? And had the bleak reality of this new life driven her insane? I didn't know what had happened to her, but she was clearly too far gone for a rational conversation. I helped the guards make the 911 call and turned to leave. Seeing my complete lack of interest, a flicker of clarity seemed to return her eyes. She burst into tears. "Nate, I was wrong. Come back. Please forgive me. I admit I was too hard on you." But it was Lauren and my parents. They were always in my ear, telling me to keep looking, that I deserved better. I see now, after everything, that what worked for you is what's best. I know I was wrong. Nate, I really did love you. You can't just leave me like this. Her confession reached my ears, but I felt nothing. Not a ripple of emotion. I had always known the truth behind her excuses. Her criticism and her betrayal weren't about respect. They were about her holding out for a better offer. She decided that my pain was a small price to pay for her ambition. Yes, I had once loved her deeply. Losing that love left a void in my soul, left me scarred. But the right person can fill that void, can heal those wounds. Hearing the distant wail of sirens, my only thought was of getting home quickly so my wife wouldn't worry. As for Jessica's desperate sobs and confessions, they were nothing more than the buzz of a summer insect. What else would you expect from a villain? I later heard from the police that Jessica had been deported from the UK. After the Blackwood family collapsed, she and Damien were stranded there. A billionaire CEO is powerful when he has a company. Without it, he's just another guy with an attitude. In the dog-eat-dog world of London's underworld, Damien got caught up in gang violence and was killed. Jessica, left with dwindling funds, quickly fell into poverty. But that's when it happened. She apparently awakened her past life's memories. The police just thought she was crazy. In that other life, she was Damien's pampered wife, with 2 beautiful children. In this life, the Blackwood family was gone, Damien was dead, and the children she was carrying were lost in the trauma of his death. The immense gap between those 2 realities shattered her mind. After being deported back to the U.S., in a state of fractured sanity, she came to a single conclusion. I, the villain who refused to follow the script and die, was the sole author of her tragedy. So she came with a fruit knife to kill me and put the story back on its proper course. According to the police report, her condition was severe. She would likely spend the rest of her life in a psychiatric hospital. I shared the full story with Isabella immediately. She narrowed her lovely eyes and snuggled into my arms. "It's all so tragic," she murmured. "Honestly, you were such a catch back then. All that talk about disrespect. It sounds more like she was window shopping, don't you think? If she really cared that much about respect, how could she have decided Damien was her soulmate so quickly? She was still looking out for me, making sure I wouldn't feel a shred of pity." I pulled her closer, reassuring her. "Don't worry, my love. I'm not that foolish." Her standards were flexible, which means the standards themselves were never the point. The person they were applied to was. The moment she chose Damien, we were over. A home should be built on certainty, not on constantly looking for a better ride. Hearing this, Isabella stood on her toes and kissed my cheek, her face flushing. Well, I for one am glad she was so reckless. If she hadn't messed up so badly, I never would have met my wonderful husband. I held my wife, basking in the certainty and happiness that filled my heart. As for Jessica, in my past life, she and Damien had all the power. This life, I was the one pulling the strings from the shadows. It was just karma. Any connection we once had was severed the day she left. I had no intention of ever visiting her. After all, why would I waste my time on a madwoman? I'm the villain, and my smart, beautiful wife is waiting for me at home. My wonderful new life has just begun. I have no intention of lingering in the darkness of the past.